Is in tackling infectious diseases, and which used to be the predominant cause of mortality, and they've now changed. So the expectation that science will bring forward large numbers of things which cumulatively will get on top of this, I think, is not an unreasonable one. That is what you would expect based on all previous experience.
And I think there are three concrete things to bear in mind of the advances in science. First, we now know one drug, dexamethasone, that reduces death from COVID in patients requiring oxygen in hospital. Second, vaccines are now in late-stage clinical trials, and there are many in late-stage clinical trials, showing an immune response. Doesn't mean they're all going to work, but it's a very important step along the way. Third, the new testing approaches, so the idea of faster near-person testing, which has been difficult up until now, and it wasn't certain that you get there, now looks real as though that's going to come online. So those three things together are concrete, and you can see, therefore, the advances that are likely to come into play over the next months, and certainly by next year, in spring and beyond, you start to see the effects of some of those.
Thanks so much, Romilly. Thanks. Let's go to David Wooding's son on Sunday. David. Dave, you need to unmute. You need to unmute.
Mute.
Thanks.
Sorry, apologies. If this 4-week lockdown doesn't do the trick and you have to extend, what sort of length of time do you envisage? Another week, another 2 weeks, another 4 weeks? And could I perhaps ask Professor Ballinson, Professor Whitty and Sir Patrick, whether they think that 4 weeks is enough or whether they were pushing for a bit longer? And the other thing I'd like to ask quickly is the Premier League matches, are they still going to be played throughout this period?
I can say yes to the Premier League, I think, with authority. David, on the, is the period up to 2nd of December going to be enough? I hope so. We have every reason to believe it will be, but we will be driven by the science, and we will look at where we've got to. I'm optimistic because as I said a couple of weeks ago, and I said again tonight, the R, although it's above 1, is not that much above 1. I think you looking at one of the slides that Patrick showed us earlier, it has been coming down. The trouble is, that still means the disease is doubling. If we can get it below 1, then, as you know, it starts halving, and that's where we want to get. And we think this package will do that, but we will be led by the evidence.
I think the key is getting the R really below 1 during this 4 weeks. So if we all do what we're supposed to do during this, the R will come down. If we can get the R well below 1, it starts to halve, and we end up in a much better position. But I don't think it's a situation where in 4 weeks' time you just say, well, everything's back to normal again, and there's going to have to still be some restrictions over the winter until the new measures come in spring and the new things come along. But 4 weeks with a really good reduction of R would make a big difference.
And just on the period coming up, to, as it were, to December the 2nd, we will be looking very carefully at what's happening in the tiered areas and working out exactly which tier would be most appropriate as we come out of these tougher autumn measures. Let's go to Harriet Lyon of the Press Association.
Thank you, Prime Minister. What is your message to leaders in Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland? Do you want them to follow your lead and introduce the same measures? And if not, are you considering restrictions on travel between the 4 nations? And to the scientists, why are you confident that you won't need formal shielding this time around? And is there also a danger that hospitals could still be overwhelmed despite these new restrictions?
Well, thanks very much, Harriet. First of all, on the devolved administrations, the situation now is that there's quite a large degree of congruence between the whole of the UK, in the sense that Northern Ireland and Wales have very similar arrangements already to the ones we're announcing tonight, and Scotland, as you know, has its 5-tier system, which it also involves some pretty stringent measures to deal with fundamentally the same problem that we have across the whole of the UK, which actually we're dealing with in pretty much the same way. And as you know, every day there are constant discussions between the four CMOs, and certainly at a political level, constant conversations about how we're fighting this together.
Yeah, and just to reinforce that the four CMOs talk together very regularly to try and make sure that the science and the thinking is as aligned as possible. In terms of the shielding, which is your question specifically to us, we're not suggesting that people who previously were on the shielding list, the just over 2 million people who are on the shielding list, do not need to take extra precautions. They do. But we learnt a lot from the first time with the shielding programme, and some of the things worked, but some of the things did not. So what we're not aiming to do is to reproduce it. There were both some practical problems, and there was also the issue of people having significant problems with loneliness and feeling completely cut off from society. And what we're trying to do is try and avoid those downsides to shielding, whilst reinforcing the message that for people who are particularly vulnerable, they do need to take even greater precautions than the general public.
Right, well, that brings us to the close. Thank you very much, Harriet. Thank you, everybody, for watching. I just repeat those three rays of sunshine or of optimism that we from our scientific and medical advisor, rather than from me. The prospect of ever better drugs, already dexamethasone, the realistic, though by no means certain, but realistic prospect of a vaccine, and then the hopes that and confidence that we're now placing in rapid turnaround testing that we're rolling out across the country. But in the meantime, we have to put in place these tougher measures for now until the 2nd of December across the country. And it goes without saying, everybody, don't forget the basics. Don't forget hands, face, space. Get a test if you have symptoms. Thank you all very much. Stay safe. Thank you.